It's January 6th, 2022. I'm in that. I Today's Anthony 2012 had a field trip. So we went to this place I had never heard of. It's Material for the Arts in New York City. It's called MFTA. Those are the letters that they had symbolically around this warehouse. Um, so we went there, and actually, as we were walking down the hall, um, I saw a, a collage, and they had the girl with the pearl earring, which I use as a medallion almost, or like as part of this collage, a reproduction, small one. Um, so I mentioned it. I said, "Oh, and there I am," to the teacher, to my son's teachers. Um, I got to spend some time with them, which was nice. I thanked them for allowing me to go again. Him and him in the city at the moment. It's just one of those things. So we went to this, and it was they had um, there's several parts of the story. I'll start with today, just so sequence and construct is correct. So we walked throughout the warehouse. Um, Again, it's just like, I mean, there's a there's this dichotomy constantly. It's like the kid in me wants to just be like, like treasures somebody else threw out. I mean, like it's an artistic haven for crafts and for the creative. And I have such an appreciation for watching their craft in motion and watching, like, I was watching my son connect with this form of art where it looks like categories and complete disarray, and he just goes in there and plucks these pieces out, and he puts together this collage or this menagerie or this mosaic of pieces, and it takes on a whole new life of its own. um so I was watching the other children as well, but mainly my focus was on Anthony. But I was watching in the room that as every all the children, some connect more freely or spontaneously with this activity than others. um and it was just so interesting. And then he had taken art the the teacher of the arts took us for a tour of this warehouse, um, and explained to us some things. He went over some vocabulary. Again, it's not normal. I mean, it's field and vocation vocabulary. It's not stuff that they teach in the classroom, in the series of rooms that my son's been on some calendar schedule of, as I had previous to he in this area. Um, Although I wasn't in this specific area, I started here, but they moved me to the Glen. With him, we were out in Suffolk, happily ever surviving, or I was trying to survive the best I could. But happy that I had all four of my boys under one roof until that got broken up and brought back to the city. The Citadel, but not in a whatever. I'm not going in on that. Um, so he went through and he showed a studio, what a studio looked like. Um, he said some words which I've heard before, and I could use them in sentence structure. I just don't really know what they mean. I didn't know that they had an artistic background to them. Have used them I sparingly. Like I have no need to use these words, but I know that they exist in conjecture. Um, they're transparent, translucent, and then opaque. The opaque was the real eye opener for me because I'm like, oh no, that's interesting. Like I've never really heard it defined before. I mean, I've heard Linda use it, but a lot of the stuff that she says, like sometimes she hits the mark, and sometimes it's like I don't know if I use it like that, but like whatever. Who's commenting in the house? Small talk. Um, so that was incredibly eye opening and a really nice change in the day. Um, and for me, it was a long day. Like I have been going out and I've been trying to exercise um, in a very scheduled manner, um, and keeping an hour and a half to 2 hour regimen. Um, but I did a review of not only the sleep and the quality of the sleep between the different levels of sleep, but I also did a personal review of my resting heart rate. And at times it goes down to 48, which I didn't really know how to, because sometimes I get very cold. So, like, so attached symptoms is the cold. So I know it's circular because it says a lower heart rate is indicative of athleticism and so on and so forth. But again, I'm cautious with how to read the material. Um, I also know my BPMs after exercise are around 120 to 100, and it stays at that for a while. It doesn't recover necessarily, it stays elevated. Um, and then there's other times where it's normally around 70, and then all of a sudden it'll drop to like 50 something. And then I get very cold. But I mean, for me, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just something now that I'm more aware of, and I'm monitoring now that I have the wearable technology. Um, Lewis, just because is it environmental? Is it something that we're motherly mother? While we were in this art warehouse, he mentioned and told the children that the materials are donated, some, and some are um, found whatever because they're trying to reduce, reuse, recycle, and repair. Um, and so the material itself, um, they're they actually, which I was like, they give out the information of the donors when somebody reuses something, and they just ask for a thank you note to be written to the people that donated the um, the materials, which I thought was a really nice way to acknowledge um, these this way of doing things. And then I'm trying to find parallel paradox for a message. And then I'm thinking of Brian Buffini, um, when that information was collected when I was still on Connecticut State Park by MacArthur. Um, and like Alexander when he first arrived, keeping quiet and to myself. Um, And so that did happen for a while with the handwritten thank you notes to my past clients um, to keep that going. Um, and then it abruptly stopped. Um, I'm not going into it, but um, it was real estate, and I was trying to keep my house afloat. Um, and then as we left, I pointed out to the teacher. I said, "You see that painting?" I said, "Oh, you have a picture of me up here." I said, "Oh, you walk by it every day." He's like, "I thought that was you," and I'm like, it's something like that. And then I asked, I said, "Do you pronounce it Johannes or Johann Vermeer?" And he said, "That is a really good question." And I'm like, it's one of those things like tomato, tomato. It depends on what circle one runs in or who the teacher of the lettering, I suppose, at school, how they inflect is upon wherever their teachings came from in passing things along. Um, so that was it. It was such a nice day. It was nice to have the change. It was nice to see Anthony or Anthony connect with an artist's whichever. And I said to I spoke a little when I was thanking while the children were doing their art project, um, and I was thanking the professor or the teacher. Um, I said, it's one of these things. It's like I've been home with children, and it's like the world moved, and I don't even know. I'm like, I don't even have the words or constructs to know. He's like, well, but what do you like? Like, what's your hobby? Do you like art? And I'm like, no, not really. I'm not wired for this. I'm appreciative of it. I was like, and I love watching the the artist in their like natural environment, but teaching art, I I don't know. Um, and so there was that. I said, and I was asked once to be on in an art colony on the board of directors, which I joined, but I was not, and but I relied upon them to tell me what was needed of me, and I told them before I even joined the board that I'm not a practicing artist. I really have no experience. I was like, I have an office in the village, and that's what they wanted me for. Is they wanted more of a village business person, because they had a colony full of artists. So I was happy to join, but um, I was like, and I tried to attend everything that they presented. I was like, but there, it was a village. There was structure there. There was something to cling on to. There were pieces like to build upon. It was a really nice sense of community. I was like, where I am in Queens, I don't have that. I It is a very pronounced difference of like there's not a town hall with a mayor of the village. There's I and so I'm just struggling at this point. But again, he made some suggestions. He said he was prior military, and he does other things, and this is his volunteer stuff. So um, I was just, but again, and he spoke of flushing. He told me something about the seeds um, for the trees came from afar. Um, and horticulture is what Queens was built on. I was like, these are interesting facts I've never heard before. Um, Something about Washington's spy trail. And I was like, hmm. And then he said something about, he mentioned these words about Flushing Meadow Park. Now, I only know it as the World's Fair, which is where Linda and Lou went when they were teenagers, but I don't really know anything else about it. Um, I don't know where it is. Like, I am not city savvy whatsoever. Um, they're a little, again, rough and abrasive. I mean, like, again, today was not rough and abrasive. It was so welcoming and wonderful to the children and to have the service available. Um, but when I was younger and here, it was more rough housing, not because I was participating, just it was whatever it was before they moved me to the Glen. Um, so there's that, and then um, yeah, so that is like the only. I mean, again, the artist calling, like, what would you expect if you saw somebody who's on a board of director of an art colony? Again, I did what was asked of me and what was offered, not really knowing what an art colony looks like, or, I mean, now I have my experiential, but um, to recreate it or how an artist survives. Even my cousin Angela is an artist. I have no idea how you are not a starving artist your entire life. I mean, like, even as kids, we used to do looming crafts over the summer to keep us ourselves busy between that and reading and writing um, in Florida when I spent the summers down in Florida. Um, but even then, I didn't understand how one makes a lifetime living and supports oneself on this art or this crafting and how the business side ties into the art side. I still don't get it. I mean, I still have no idea how one could support themselves. Um, so again, that's another part of this inner city struggle. Um, Outside the scope of services and things for which I don't know how they built that side of anything. Um, oh, and interestingly enough, Lewis has had this flutter. It sounds like perhaps an AFib or perhaps um, the way he described it. He's like almost like a backflow. So I was thinking like valve, but again, I don't say anything. And so he went to the doctor. They put a monitor on, and it came back that there's a disturbance in the electrical. He's got an arrhythmia. So now he's on monitoring of that. But again, it just happened out of nowhere. Um, so it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies broken.